So guys, in this video we are going to be pulling this LT1 motor and taking it out and tearing it all down, figuring out what's wrong with it. It doesn't have oil pressure. It's not getting any oil up to the rockers. I picked this car up in Iowa, which is about a couple hours north of us, and didn't run. It was kind of one of those deals that I was risking, and went up there, brought it home, got it running, found out the rockers were not getting any oil, found out the motor has no oil pressure. So here's where we are. We're pulling it, gonna be tearing it all down, figuring out what was wrong with it. Really, these motors aren't as bad as people think pulling them. We have a pretty trick little setup that you'll see once we get everything off the motor. We gotta rip all the lines off, gotta get wires, everything off. I mean, it's a little time consuming, but it's really not as hard as people think. But yes, these motors do go down from the bottom. You drop the K-members out from underneath the cars. I've seen people pull them out from the top, but that's way more of a hassle, I think. But so yeah, that's what today's video is about. So stay tuned. So here's what I was talking about. These rockers are as dry as a bone, and this motor ran here recently, and there was a bunch of trash down in the motor. So yep, just gonna continue pulling her out. And here's probably one of the easier ways of doing this without a lift. We have this trick little winch mounted to the ceiling. It's securely mounted, and basically we set the motor and motor, transmission, K-member, everything on roll around carts, and then basically just use that to winch the body up around it, and it works great. It's a lot easier than working with a cherry picker. The problem with a cherry picker is the legs of the cherry picker will get in the way of trying to slide the motor and everything out. And you see, we just lift it up high enough that we can slide that puppy right out of there. And it's really a trick how these motors come out, and once you kind of understand it and done it a couple times like we have, it really isn't as hard as everyone makes it out to be. So here's the new project that we got going on. Bought this car out of Iowa. I bought it not running. Kind of tinkered with some stuff. I knew it was a fuel issue. It was either a fuel or OptiSpark issue. when I first, went and looked at it, and got it to start, and found out that no oil pressure, absolutely nothing. No oil was getting up to the rockers. They were rattling pretty loud. So decided we're gonna have to pull the motor and go over everything. So yeah, this is kind of where we're at. I already got the exhaust pulled off. Luckily, it's already got headers on it. Let's see if we can make out that sometime. Not quite sure, but got headers. Had to cut. They didn't bolt the header. They didn't bolt it. They welded it, so I had to cut that where it flanged in with the rest of the exhaust. But it's got a remanufactured transmission in it. And that's really it, guys. I mean, we're just gonna start detaching the motor from the K-member. We got this old girl. This is my dad's. This is a V6. It's a 96 3.8 liter. He hit a deer with it a couple years ago, kind of dented up the hood, so had to put a new, not new, but put a different nose piece on it. Need to get it painted. It's just primered. Need to get a fender for it. Looks a lot better with those wheels. And then here's the hood. He's got it all primered up. So they look good, but back over here, I can squeeze around. Oh, shit. Really, these things aren't too difficult. We just hook a winch to that chain and basically lift the car up. You can use an engine hoist and whatnot. The only problem with an engine hoist is the legs. If it's like our engine hoist, the legs will kick out here and it's hard to get the motor slid out. If you use our little winch setup here, you have nothing, you lift it up, there's nothing in the way, it rolls right out. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty, it definitely takes some time, but it's not as bad as people presume it to be. You know, you got 4 bolts there, 3, 4. I mean, that's what holds it in. Really, it's just getting everything else out of the way. You know, you gotta take the drive shaft out. You gotta take the drive shaft. Gotta take the starter off. Unhook everything. Brake lines, power steering lines had to come off. But yeah, we're just gonna start detaching this thing and get it up to our shop so we can start tearing down and see what happened. So here's the easy part, just splitting the transmission from the motor. You know, you get your bell housing bolts. Don't forget your cooler lines, they gotta come off. And then converter bolts, there'll be 3 of those, which when the motor's out of the car, it's a lot easier to get to them. But once you get all those bolts, transmission will slide right out. So here we're getting all the front accessories off: power steering, AC compressor, water pump, OptiSpark, stuff like that, just so we can get down to the bare bones of this small block Chevy so we can see what went wrong. So guys, we are back tearing this thing down. Good start. Dump everything out of there. So, this is a motor that I pulled out of a 94 Firebird. And we are not getting any oil pressure. Getting no oil up to the rockers. They should be pumped up. I had this thing running and they're not pumped up. No oil up to the rockers. That one's the same way. But so we're tearing her down. Gonna try and figure out what exactly is going on. So we got the intake off and now on to these aluminum heads. These were one of the best heads that GM came out with, especially for its time, and still they hold their own for nowadays standards. Stock, these things are 58 cc, and that gets you about 10.5 compression depending on what piston setup you running. But from the factory, that's about 10.5 compression, which is quite a bit for, you know, a little street motor, or for a stock motor back in the early 90s, mid 90s. Well, that was in the bottom of the pan. Take that oil pump apart. I'm pretty sure, I know that spring is supposed to maybe be in there. I'm not 100% sure. So this just looks to be a stock cam, nothing too wild. Everything looked good on the cam. Didn't look like it had any flat spots on it or anything that was concerning. You know, it looked smooth, and all the cam bearings were smooth and are definitely reusable. Kind of got a mess going on, but it's all torn down. The main bearings don't look too bad. They look worn out. The rod bearings were really worn out. You can see some of them have some grooves in it that you can feel with your fingernails. They weren't horrible though. And these don't look too bad. The block looks like it's in great shape. Cylinders and whatnot. I don't see any scarring. That's just dirt right there. They look pretty. Looks to be in good shape. Crank looks to be in good shape. So overall, this motor had a bunch of gunk in it, no oil pressure, but it actually doesn't look too bad. So we found our culprit for no oil pressure. This little oil pump gear sits down in there and is ran off the camshaft. Runs off the camshaft on this gear back here. This gear, and that's what turns. There's a rod connected to the oil pump that sits down right in that little slit. Well, this thing is missing some teeth. Get it to focus for you. Teeth are smashed down, basically knocked off. Teeth are gone. You can see where some have been bent. They're supposed to be angled like that a little bit, but some of these over here were starting to break. And then all those right there are gone. So that was our issue for no oil pressure. I'm 100% sure on that. I mean, you're not gonna get any oil pressure if your gear is not spinning when the camshaft is. So I'm glad we didn't run this motor very long. The motor itself doesn't look horrible. The main bearings look, they're used. This car had 140,000 miles on it, so they look used. The rod bearings, they're a little concerning. There's quite a bit of material worn away on those, but I think a new set of rod bearings, main bearings, new rings, and this motor would be right back, running great as it usually is. A new pump gear. I'm gonna go ahead and buy a oil pump because those things always take a crap. So 140,000 miles, it needs a new one. But yeah, guys, that's basically it. I got a mess of parts here. So guys, I really don't have I don't really know what I'm doing with this motor yet. You guys kind of give me some ideas, throw some stuff out there that you've done with your LT1 or, similar motors. Just, give me some ideas. Throw it in the comments down below. What do you think we ought to do with this as like a budget build? Just because I'm not trying to throw a bunch of money, but I do want this motor to be kind of, it's already got long tube headers and, so it's had some like small upgrades, so we don't have to worry about stuff like that. But I want to do something cool with this motor. Preferably, I'm not gonna bore it out or nothing like that, because nowadays machine work is crazy expensive, and that's not quite what I'm trying to do right now. So let's see what we can do with what we kind of have. But maybe put some dome pistons in it, up the compression a little bit, put a maybe a better set of aluminum heads on it. But really those aren't bad heads at all. Maybe put a bigger cam in it, get it, give it some lope or something. Who knows? Just throw down below what you've done or what you want to see, and maybe we can do something about it. But I really appreciate you guys watching these videos. And subscribe, like the video. It really helps us out and really makes me want to make some more. So I appreciate your guys' support, and have a great rest of your day.